Welcome to the Royal Diaries, Unlocking History. My name is Felicia.
My name is Julia. We are sisters who love books, history, and talking about them both.
We're doing a deep dive into the Royal Diaries series.
Come with us as we learn about the girls who became women that shaped history.
So what are the questions we would like to ask ourselves and ask the universe?
I think also, too, is that maybe we should go with the purpose of the hiatus, too, as well. Do we want to?
Do you want to get into how you're busy and how I'm busy, or do you want to just say the purpose of a hiatus is that
we need to play some catch-up?
Well, no, we're to keep our consistent rhythm.
Exactly.
We have to factor in a break. We have to factor in breaks, and then it was a question of, did we want to try to bank and do 10 episodes in the backlog, which, let's be honest, if we were just chit-chatting about our favorite movies or our favorite TV shows or whatever, and minimal editing or anything like that,
research,
or that would be fine. But because there's the research element, I think, well, if you want to say what has surprised you in the journey of podcasting,
which is at the same time, it's not surprising at all, but at the same time, it's just super annoying that anybody who's not white and European, it's not a lot's been translated into English. Also trying to go and synthesize down either a lot of information or going and reading something that ends up being pretty eyebrow raising, where then you go and you have to do a little bit of digging to basically try and guarantee some of the veracity of what's being said. So and then also, you have to go and make some like those editorial choices. There are a bunch of like these myths / stories about Cleopatra that it's like, did it actually go and happen? And then it sort of ends up becoming, we could go and talk about how she apparently wouldn't put a pearl in a thing of vinegary wine and then drink the whole thing.
And that's how this is the most expensive meal ever.
Pretty much. And then I think it was Caesar or Antony, one of them
was like, I'm turned on by the fact that you spend money.
No, but somebody was, I'll go and I'll pay you a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Somebody. But the thing is, so you have to go and ask, is this actually going to be a useful piece of information?
Yeah, what does this have to do with the story or whatever you're trying to share? And I think each episode or each person is sort of what you're able to find, but then also when you're reading about it, it can kind of shape what you do or don't share about them. For example, Anastasia, there's only so much you know about a 17-year-old girl that hasn't already been hashed out there, and also because of through photographs and blah, blah, blah. It's pretty much all there. We don't have an actual diary of hers or anything like that. So I guess I'll have to talk more about the context of how does she become a myth more so, because that's more of the information that's out there.
And I think that's partially why, especially for the Marie Antoinette episode, it became more interesting in terms of let's go and talk about the context of this is where she came from in terms of her family, because I think a lot of people forget that she's Austrian anyways, or that her mother was such a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people, Versailles, rich, blah, 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 which is true. But it's sort of okay, let's go and talk a little bit about this archaic etiquette system. How did it all go and show up? And really, what were the political factors that went behind creating that type of system?
Yeah, instead of just saying, all this stuff, none of this existed. And all of a sudden, Marie Antoinette shows up, and then all of a sudden, we do everything like this.
Exactly.
And she's the one that is driving it and making it happen, when really she just ends up getting absorbed into this wacky system.
Exactly.
So I have prepared some questions.
You have prepared questions. I will read them aloud. Okay, so what is one standout fact you learned over the last 5 episodes? Ideally, what did we learn from the other person?
Oh, wow, there's quite a few things. I would say two things actually. The outrage over Marie Antoinette wearing her peasant-y clothes wasn't about, she's not looking fancy in terms of like what a royal should like. It was more she's wearing English muslin instead of supporting French artisans with French silk, and how that in turn led further down the line to this whole thing of wearing airy and simple sort of Pride and Prejudice Regency looking stuff, and how because France was in turmoil because of the revolution, then English cotton industry really exploded, and that sort of linear line from Marie Antoinette wearing that kind of outfit just sort of continued on, instead of, I don't know, for some reason in my mind I was thinking of almost like I knew that simple fashion was in reaction to the fussy kind of stuff that came before, but I didn't think about Marie Antoinette as being kind of like a bridge between those two things in that way. So that was an interesting way of re-examining this scandal that I already knew about, but I didn't know about it in terms of that.
Just like a fun plug, if you are ever in Bath in England, they have what's known as the Fashion Museum, and I believe it's below the arcade. I'm probably wrong about that, but it's 2 blocks up from the Abbey. Anyways, but it is what it says on the tin. It's a fashion museum, and they really actually, what's great about it is that they have this amazing selection of 18th century fashion and then early 19th century fashion, and you can go and see the changes, and especially because it happened in a 20-year period, you have such a shift in how fashion works. I mean, I think that right now, and the way how fashion works right now, we have this sense that things go in like such these quick cycles and everything like that. Well, fashion, it always was on a cycle, but because things were so expensive and because going and changing fashion was only really done by the rich, but even rich people at the time had limited money, you wouldn't have such a rapid change in silhouette and style. But because it's cotton muslin, which is really cheap.
Well, and also that's sort of at the dawn of the full-on industrial age, like factories of hundreds of people being able to do mill work instead of an individual doing their own by hand kind of work.
Well, and also then the fashion became stylish. Basically, they were, let's have a minimalist capsule wardrobe. That was the whole big thing. So you would basically have your standard day dress, and then you would basically just go and accessorize the crap out of it.
Do you know what's a really good illustration of that principle is in Bright Star, because of how you get to see how Fanny alters her simple, like you're saying, staple fashion pieces and updating them and adding an extra ruffle and things like that to just zhuzh it, or I'm wearing the same dress but I have a different kind of little cappy jacket now, or a different hat, kind of thing like that.
Or even the 2020 Emma that was directed by Autumn de Wilde. There, she really only wears 4 dresses, but she just keeps on accessorizing them differently in pretty much each scene, and even repeats some of her accessories but just uses them in a different way or in a different combination,
which I really appreciate. Like that in TV and in movies isn't done enough.
No,
my goodness. I'm just thinking about watching the OC when I was a teen, and I'm like, how many tank tops does this one person have? She must have an entire closet just full of tank tops.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, even as we read in the book, Maria would go and wear her hair the same way multiple times, days in a row.
It's true, sleeping with the box to hold it still. What about you? What was one, I did not know that fact?
So,
I mean, obviously there's more than one on both our sides, but what's one that right now just pops in your head?
That 1492 was like the most ridiculous, like off the chain year. I don't even want to just say Spanish history, probably in European history.
Like world history.
One of those classic things about, did you know that Martin Luther King Jr. and Anne Frank were born in the same year? And you're like, oh snap, they totally were. But you don't really think about it because they're just, those lines in the history have not been woven into the tapestry side by side.
Things are chunked apart.
Yeah, and so that was really cool. And plus also, it is taking place at the height of the Renaissance too. I really just had this thing about, oh yeah, all these people were truly just going about their lives just right next to each other. How wild is that? Could you imagine being a baker in Florence and Leonardo da Vinci's dumbass rolls in when he's hungover, and then a couple days later Donatello shows up because he really likes her wife's buns or whatever, maybe in more ways than one. Sometimes when you think about it, it's just wild. Hey, Rodrigo Borgia, give me my papal bull. Yeah. Send this document. It's wild.
you know, that whole thing of if you could invite any famous people to dinner, who would you invite?
I don't even need to go
I know,
like that.
I don't need to pull them from different timelines. They're all in the same timeline.
Exactly.
This is a wild dinner party we could actually have in 1492.
Yeah.
So,
oh, man.
guest appearance by Rodrigo Borgia showing up. What?
Jeremy Irons is here?
What is happening?
Jeremy Irons!
How'd you get here?
Exactly.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to the knowledge bank about someone you talked about?
Let me think about that. Is there anyone in terms... Because you got to talk about Cleopatra, and you got to talk about Marie Antoinette, your faves.
Yes. And then
I did Elizabeth, Isabel, and Anastasia. Mm-hmm. You get to do 3
next time.
Next time.
Yeah, doing this rotation cycle, which is fair. I think also, though, is because I'm coming up to like a point where it's fortunately we are just stepping away from just solely most of the European, aka or like the Mediterranean basin history.
The ones you quote unquote already know.
Yeah, and we're gonna be going and expanding it, but let's be real, most white history classes are not interested in talking about the women who are going to be talking about upcoming.
So it'll be interesting to see how we end up having to tackle them, because it may be, stuff may not be translated, or just because it's a woman and she's not white. Even the fact, how we were saying, it's hard to find accurate dates about when people are born.
Yeah.
And it's because she's a woman, even if she ends up being, Elizabeth the First's mom.
Yeah.
You don't care
Yes.
at the time. So just coupled on top of that, who's the people usually writing the history textbooks? Straight white dudes.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to take the time to do intensive fact checking
No.
about, people from the African continent or China or wherever? So anyways, that's just a precursor for what we have to look forward to. But I don't know, it could take our episodes in a different direction, because frankly, I don't know too much. I have cursory knowledge of a lot of the different places where we're going to travel through time. Mm-hmm. So I think that'll be kind of cool to learn more about the actual spaces and places.
For some reason, my brain just went to Country Mouse and City Mouse, that cartoon where they used to go and be at different historical events. First of all,
but they had cousins all over the world, and they were like all different races and backgrounds and ethnicities.
Which on one hand, cool. I can probably buy it because,
mice are mice, right? I don't know.
As members of the Rat says, I had 476 brothers and sisters. Anyways, but the point is, I just think about that. Us going around the world. Emily and Alexander.
Yeah, just traveling the world. Sorry,
Anyway.
What was the question? Any additional fun fact things that you didn't include necessarily, or wanted to just talk a little bit more about because it was kind of maybe off topic of how you were approaching your subjects?
Did Cleopatra, like all these other myths about Cleopatra, did she go and drink that pearl or whatever? Mm-hmm. Then we briefly touched, did she do the rug thing? Does it really matter? But I mean, I think that Marie Antoinette really liked to bathe. And she introduced the flush toilet to Versailles, because I am not gonna go and piss in a corner, because that's literally what people would do, because there were thousands of people at Versailles, and Louis XIV, I mean, God bless him, except not, but he was, I'm gonna go and have everybody live here, but I'm not gonna go and have enough bathrooms anywhere.
And not enough chamber pots, I guess, or people were just, meh, everyone's doing it, I can do it too.
Well, I think the thing is, too, is because the way how Versailles is laid out, everything's ridiculously far from everybody. So there weren't exactly public washrooms. You can't just go walk into somebody's room, yo, man, I have to pee, I gotta go there. You have to go back to your room. But if your room is literally a 10-mile walk away from where you are not going to be able to hold it in.
Well, I do know that houses, estates, palaces, etc. around that time were built. The idea of a hallway being like a passageway that different rooms are connected to doesn't exist. You literally walk through a room to get to a room to get to a room. So if you're looking for a private corner or a place to have a chamber pot to just whatever, there really isn't the space for it, isn't there?
Or you'd have those big galleries. So basically, it became really popular in Versailles to just
shit in a corner.
Yeah, basically, you shit in a corner or you shat in a box and you left it there.
Fingers crossed the servants will get it.
And nobody bathed, and everybody just wore perfume. So it smelled like a dirty toilet covered in Chanel No. 5. Oh. It was disgusting.
Yes.
And so they would basically go and leave for 2 weeks, the entire court, just pack them legitimately in these poor stores, like, okay, we're gonna scrub her top to bottom. Week after the people come back,
It's just destroyed again.
Exactly. So Marie Antoinette said, "Excuse me, no." And so she got a flush toilet installed, along with going and having a bath pretty much 2 or 3 times a week, to the point where she would write letters in her bath. She would go and have tea and meet with people. She was, you know what, like, if you want to keep on doing all this dumb shit, you can do it, but I'm going to have my bath. And you know what? I respect that.
Who knows, maybe because when you're in the bath, there isn't the same etiquette maybe of who has to hand you whatever, because nothing is happening, you're just chilling. So maybe to escape from who's handing you the this and what's
Doing
the
the
order
that.
of that. The only time I can have a pause on this is if I'm literally singing this bathtub. They're like, are you going to get out? It's been 3 hours. No.
Exactly. And she would have really, really long baths too.
Nice.
So that's something that I
Didn't make it in the original cut.
did not make it into the original cut. Plus, I mean, there's that. Oh, and also her mom being all about ass's milk was also really true. And
Bathing in donkey milk, yeah.
drinking it, washing your face with it. It was basically a whole thing, which actually turns out is true because donkeys actually have really nutritious milk, and it is also really good for the skin too.
There you go.
What about you?
I feel like there was some stuff with Elizabeth that was a little bit more cursory just because, you know, it's their first kick at the can. I didn't take time to really get into Age of Exploration and how she was a huge patron of that, but then on the side came with that was the expansion of England as part of what would eventually become the official transatlantic slave network. So yeah, that whole thing, and finding quote unquote America, establishing the first colonies there, etc. But really, apart from her patronage of sort of her heroic dashing men to do those things like the Sir Walter Raleighs and stuff like that, I didn't see too much apart from her just saying, yes, I like the fact that something's named after me, Virginia, and having ownership of something.
Which, by the way, I did not clue until I was in high school, and also it's named after Queen Elizabeth. Where the frick did you get Virgin?
Oh, yeah, they're like virgin country, literally. Yeah, so I think
that is branding.
That's branding. Well, and you know, there's that great portrait that was done of her shortly after the defeat of the Spanish Armada, where you have the Spanish Armada out through the window, and just to show you they got defeated and the English are kicking their asses. She's standing there and her hands on a globe, but she's actually touching where Virginia it would be on the map, kind of thing. Just saying, I own this.
Yeah.
So I think she was really into the idea of expanding her iconography further. And also the use of her taking advantage of the fact that with essentially the banning, even though she didn't officially outright ban it, but the banning of Catholicism, there's a need for a new lady for people to look up to, because you're not allowed to have the Virgin Mary, you have now the Virgin Elizabeth.
Exactly.
And also just about essentially how history is written by the winners. And let's be honest, a lot of the unflattering stuff talked about with her sister, Mary the First, people who are writing about that stuff, if they're writing about it contemporarily, they're not going to put a flattering portrait of Mary out there, even though Mary was pretty much just par for the course of how in general rulers were doing things. I mean, Isabel and Ferdinand, look at them with like the Inquisition and stuff. And even, you know, Henry VIII, anyone who he decided was treasonous would get the chop. But all of a sudden, because Mary shows up and she's sort of following the same idea and principle, but it also is conflated with religion, then that's where people are like, oh, Bloody Mary and all this horrible stuff. But I'm
I mean, I remember the horrible histories, and they had the even more terrible Tudors book.
Yeah.
And reading how, I think it was Henry VIII had like 78 or 72,000 people officially executed in his time.
Yeah.
Which is essentially 35 people a week, aka 5 people a day. Kind of like there was being like a national lottery, but with 5 losers every week.
Yeah. We obviously, the main focus is on Elizabeth, but it's understanding, you know, what are the family dynamic in the relationships, and then how afterwards, if you're the person who comes out on top, you know, how are you going to be different, and also, you know, learn from the lessons learned from what you've seen your dad do, your brother, and then your sister do. So I think that's sort of the underpinning success story of Elizabeth was, for the most part, we will see when it comes to Mary Queen of Scots, how that goes down. Like I said, highlighting how there was severe vendettas against Elizabeth, how everybody wanted to kill this lady.
Yeah.
And so it just because she is an anomaly, she's like a woman, and also she's outside of generally what is the most practiced religion, which is Catholicism versus Protestantism.
And you know, she's not married and she's refusing to go and do a bunch of the stuff that she's quote unquote supposed to go and do.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question. What are you looking forward to / excited about in the next 5 episodes? Or what are you apprehensive / nervous about with the next 5 episodes? Let's go and bring up what the whole list so people know what to expect.
Yes,
I think that's fair.
coming quote unquote next season 2.
Well, not really season 2. It's season 1, part
2.
Yeah, because there are 20.
There's 20 books in the series.
And basically having 2 seasons, 2 parts each, 5 books in each part, because I don't know about you, when I go and I see like a massive clump, and if you go and you get behind, but then also it's just sometimes it's a little bit nicer to go and space it out. And we're always evolving in our format and how we'd like to do these things. But anyways, so we have Nzinga, we have Kaulani, we have Lady of Chiaoku, we have Victoria, and we have Mary, Queen of Scots. So those are the next 5.
So what are you looking forward to or more apprehensive about?
A little bit of heads up. We have started researching and recording for some of the upcoming episodes. Mm-hmm. And I will say that I am most concerned about Lady of Chiaoku, because just doing some cursory research, it ends up being a bit of a, okay, so we do not have a lot about this person. And at the same time, though, I don't know if you know this, but talking about China in any sort of a way is kind of a hot topic right now that can go and get a little inflammatory for people. So how to go and write about and to talk about that really long ancient history and culture and peoples, right? Well, and to try to go and nuance our conversation a bit too.
I think about my brain like as in having filing cabinets and a filing system, and if you open up the file folder in my brain that says China, it's very thin. I'm ashamed to admit how thin it is. So from that perspective, I'm excited to learn more things and beef up that file folder a little bit. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I say apprehensive or this or that, I get the lighter load coming up. So I get Kaulani and I get Victoria. Mm-hmm. And these 2 ladies are 2 of my historical faves. So I'm excited about that. But when you're doing stuff with your faves, it is that whole thing where I can't cover every single thing. So how do I want to approach this? Especially because Victoria is my Marie Antoinette. Like since a small child, I've had a fascination with her, but obviously that has changed and tempered over time. It's like when you're a kid and you have certain ideals about your parents, and then as you get older, you realize, oh, they're a flawed human being. So it's sort of the same thing that's happened with me and Victoria, but I still have a tiny piece of me that's, I love Victoria.
Yeah.
And the frills and the antiques and whatever. So that being said, I'm looking forward to that, but it's also how do you talk about someone who I already know everything about this. How do you talk about it in a new and fun way for yourself, but also for someone else?
You know what I'm also looking forward to? I'm also looking forward to deconstructing Mary, Queen of Scots a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Mostly because there probably will be an extended rant heads up about the Saoirse Ronan film, which is absolutely terrible.
Fair enough.
And just going and talking about her. And I think also that's going to be, a really useful follow-up in a way to the Elizabeth I episode too, because that is a significant episode. They are significant people in each other's lives for various reasons. I'm looking forward to that.
I know we have 2 people who actually connected with us via like a review.
Oh.
So I just want to, because it's very small and it's hard to find sometimes. So someone who reviewed us on Apple Podcasts, they said, listen to the available episodes and can't wait for more fascinating stuff. Casemo7. Thank you very much for your this is great comment.
Oh my God, we got a rating?
Yes.
Oh my God.
We got an actual rating and a review. And then we also got this person who follows our Tumblr, and they messaged us. This is from The Binge Who Stole Christmas. They listened to the first episode and they're definitely a fan. I love y'all's analysis and research. I was wondering the order that we're going to go in. Well, we're following publishing order, like published order. So I told them that. And then they said, dope. I can't wait to all get to Jan Hanara. Thanks to that book, I spent a good amount of my teen years researching the Mughal dynasty. Anyways, thanks for putting this podcast out. I hope all is well for you. So thank you very much, Binge Who Stole Christmas from Tumblr.
I just want to say, by the way, that is an amazing username.
I know.
But also, I really did love that book too, and I'm really excited that I get to cover it. One, because I love Mongol art and architecture, but also, again, we have a return of very amazing food description, and I'm all about the food description.
I feel like we should make our own based off of the Royal Diaries kind of recommendation of the different foods, or at least we try to make them. Some of that saffron rice business from Isabel's. When she's, I have to give up all the good food for Lent. Oh my gosh, Isabel, stop being such a buzzkill. Eat the food.
Well, also, I just want to go and say, though, I'd be down to go and have saffron rice, but I don't really want to go and have to mortgage the house or, sell the dog.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much it for us for the first part of our season one.
Think about this as the mid-season break, when I don't watch that much episodic TV at this point.
But back in the day, remember there used to be 24 episodes of show, and then we'd go off the air for about 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, well, we're only going to be gone for
maybe two and a half weeks max kind of thing.
Maybe 3, depending. But yeah, we'll let you all know when we're coming back.
Follow us on our Instagram, our Tumblr, our Facebook, and our Twitter, because we post a coming soon post on the weekend that we'll be posting back. So just keep a heads up for that, and you'll see our coming soon post, and you'll know when we're back up and running.
Awesome.
So thanks, and for everyone who's liked and reviewed, thank you so much. And if you're enjoying this, please do the same. Bye.
Bye.
Follow us for more research, fun facts, soundtracks, and aesthetic posts. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and Twitter at Royal Diaries Pod.